In Munster, Anabaptists sought to create a new Jerusalem. Jan Matthys preached an imminent apocalypse. In 1534, Anabaptist siege brought starvation, and the leaders were executed, their bodies displayed in cages. Welcome to the Bible Study Channel, trustworthy Bible teaching. Here's your host, Michael.
The clip you just saw is one of many real events in history. And unlike most Anabaptists who were peaceful pacifists, this radical group in Munster confused the goal of the church. They believed they were called to take dominion, to control society, rather than preach the gospel and make disciples. Today we're going to look at the New Apostolic Reformation, the Seven Mountains Mandate, and Dominion Theology. A movement that is best unbiblical and at worst dangerous. The modern origins of the New Apostolic Reformation, coined by C. Peter Wagner in the 1990s, promoted restored apostles and prophets, dominion applied to society. An exact quote, dominion has to do with control, dominion has to do with rulership, dominion has to do with authority and subduing, and it relates to society. Many teach Christ's return is connected to the church taking dominion. This was later developed into the Seven Mountains Mandate. Lance Wallnau later developed this into dominion strategy for society. The claim is Christians must gain control over religion, family, education, government, media, arts and entertainment, and business. The dominion language. You've a right to rule, to reign, and take dominion. Paula White, spiritual advisor of Donald Trump. As you can see, this is about control. The verse often used, Genesis 1:28. Subdue and have dominion is the phrase they use. It's used to argue the church must rule politically and culturally. But what does Genesis 1:28 mean? This is stewardship over creation, not the church ruling over governments. Does this theology contradict Jesus' own words? John 18:36. Jesus answered, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews, but my kingdom is not from this world. Jesus rejected a kingdom advanced by political power or force. The church is not called to take over governments, nations, or people. Another core issue is they reverse the sovereignty of God. Daniel 4:35. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, what do you mean by doing these things? Dominion theology can apply. We are in control. Scripture teaches God is in complete control over the kings and presidents. Now that we've seen the church is not called to take dominion, let's look at what the Bible teaches about the church and the state. Romans 13:1-7. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive his approval. For he is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. Therefore, one must be in subjection not only to avoid God's wrath, but also for the sake of consciousness. For because of this, you also pay your taxes, for the authorities and ministers of God attending to this very thing. Pay to all what is owed to them, taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed. honor to whom honor is owed. Verse 1 and 2. Authority is from God. Government exists because God established it. Resisting lawful authority is resisting what God has appointed. 3 and 4. Notice the phrase, the sword. This is a reference to the fact that government is meant to restrain evil. The ruler does not bear this sword in vain. For example, if someone commits murder, the sword of authority is required to punish that crime. Why submit? Not just for fear of punishment, but for the sake of consciousness before God. However, this authority is not unlimited. For example, a new president or governor may be voted in, but they are still ordained or a servant of God, and any abuse of this power would be judged by God either now or later. Verse 6 and 7, taxes plus honor. So we are pay our taxes, and we could show respect and honor by praying for our leaders. When is disobedience biblical? If the government commands sin, Christians must obey God. For example, Exodus 1. The midwives refused Pharaoh's order to kill the babies. Daniel 3. Daniel refused to bow to the golden image and commit adultery. Acts 4. The apostles kept preaching Christ. So what is the church's role? The kings of the kingdom. Matthew 16:19. Their authority is to preach the gospel. Matthew 18:15 through 17. It's also church discipline. They can excommunicate somebody from the church, but they can also restore them back to the church. Church changes society by preaching and discipling, not by seizing power. Church and civil government have distinct roles. Dominion theology blurs these roles. Now it's time for the application and conclusion portion. So the church is to preach the gospel and discipleship, heart change. The government, restrain evil and maintain order. The biggest flaw of dominion theology. It has the sovereignty of God in reverse, putting too much faith in political systems or nations, essentially leading to the belief we are in control instead of God. Example, the language. We must take dominion. Our duty, preach Christ, make disciples, live faithfully, and pray for the leaders. I would like to close with one of my favorite theologians, R.C. Sproul. Love can restrain evil, but it cannot regenerate the human heart. To say it in another way, no matter how many laws we pass, it cannot regenerate the human heart. Only the preaching of the gospel can do that. As always, have a good day and God bless.